Thank you for coming out on this chilly day to our annual Sheedy Award event. It is really a joy to be here with all of you today. Please come in. I think there's some extra seats up here if you're amenable to sitting in the front row. As many of you know, I've been out for about the past 8 weeks, and so it's been really exciting to be back and see so many warm and welcoming faces. And thank you all for the good wishes and the welcomes. I look forward to catching up with many of you at the reception today. Also, as you learned in September, this is going to be my last year as Dean of the College of Arts and Letters. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. We made the announcement right after the fall faculty meeting, the September faculty meeting. So I just wanted to say that it's been a real honor of a lifetime to lead the college over these past 7 years. And I am very proud of what we have accomplished together, though there's still 7 months to go, so we have a lot of work yet to do. I mentioned at the faculty talk in September that our theme for this year in the Dean's office was to implement and elevate, and so we are continuing on with that, and we'll continue on until the next Dean is named. I am very grateful for the faculty and students, including today's award recipient, who have graciously committed their time to joining the search committee for the next Dean of the college, and I am very, very confident that the college is going to be in good hands moving forward. I would also like to extend my thanks to Mike Priest. Where is Mike? Mike, if everybody could join me in thanking him for acting as dean in my absence. He loved the job so much he did not want me to come back. But thanks to his presence, his leadership, and his thoughtful decision-making this fall, we have continued to move forward. Thank you as well to the rest of the Arts and Letters leadership team and to the staff in the Dean's office who are all sprinkled throughout today. But if you could thank them when you see them at the reception, their dedication, determination, and hard work just keep everything moving all the time, but particularly during these last 2 months, have really made sure that the work of the college kept going. So thank you to all of them as well. But today is not about me or about the Dean's office. It is about our very worthy recipient of the Sheedy Award for Excellence in Teaching. And so to celebrate the importance and value of teaching that has always been at the heart of our college and our university. So to begin today's ceremony, I would like to invite Sister Ann Estelle, the John Cardinal O'Hara Professor of Theology, to offer our invocation. Sister Ann.
In those days, Mary arose and went with haste into the hill country. What a beautiful scene the gospel paints. The young Virgin Mary, Our Lady, Notre Dame, hastens into the hills. She bears her holy child, the Christ, within her womb. She goes in haste because she's eager to help her cousin Elizabeth, eager to share Elizabeth's happiness, eager to communicate her own joy. And we, the posters say, we are Notre Dame. Do we go with similar haste into the hill country? Ours is the hill country of the end of the semester, the piles of student papers to read, of exams to grade, of reports and chapters to write, the hill country, too, of long to-do lists in the days before Christmas, before the winter holidays. Unlike Mary, who ascends so lightly, so quick-footed, it seems, we often make our way up the slope, heavily burdened with worries for ourselves, our loved ones, our troubled world. Instead of ascending into the hills with purposeful haste and overflowing joy, are we not sometimes trudging along, tired on the steep upward climb? Notre Dame, our mother, Mother of mercy, pray for us. Implore for us a share in your grace, that like you and with you, we may have courage and joy on the road into the hills. Inspire us with gratitude for all the gifts, the blessings we have received. Midway through this academic year, let us look back gratefully on the semester coming soon to its end and sing with you your song of blazing joy. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God my Savior. For he who is mighty has done great things for us and through us, lifting up the lowly, filling the hungry with good things. Notre Dame, our mother, pray for us. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Ann. Since 1970, today's award has been presented to an outstanding teacher in the College of Arts and Letters in honor of Reverend Charles Sheedy, C.S.C., who served as Dean of the College from 1951 to 1969. It commends a faculty member who has sustained excellence in research and instruction over a wide range of courses. This individual must also motivate and enrich students using innovative and creative teaching methods and influence teaching and learning within the department, the college, and the university. Our tradition is for the previous Sheedy Award winner to offer an introduction of the new recipient, so please join me in welcoming to the podium Eric Sims, the Michael P. Grace II Collegiate Chair and Department Chair in Economics.
Good afternoon, and thanks, Sarah, for that kind introduction. It is my great honor to be with you here today. Earlier this semester, along with several other former winners of the Sheedy Award, I was fortunate to read the nomination materials of several of our colleagues. This experience was both humbling and inspiring. Humbling in the sense that it made me wonder how in the world I ever won this award. It was inspiring, however, to learn about the pedagogical innovation, dedication to their craft, and authentic commitment to our students of so many of our colleagues. The experience of reviewing these applications made me even more proud to be a faculty member in the College of Arts and Letters. The state of teaching and undergraduate mentorship in our college is strong. Among a set of highly credentialed and deserving nominees, one name stood out above the rest, and that was Father Kevin Grove. Father Kevin hails from the thriving metropolis of Hobson, Montana, population of 179 in the 2020 census. He was ordained a Holy Cross priest in 2010 and received his PhD from Cambridge in 2016, and he's been a professor in our Department of Theology ever since. He earned tenure just this past spring. Father Kevin studies St. Augustine, the theology of memory, and is an expert on the writings of Blessed Basil Moreau, the founder of the Congregation of Holy Cross. He lives with and ministers to the residents of Dunne Hall here on campus, and I think there's a bunch of Dunne residents here, and so I know that Father Kevin appreciates your being here, and so do I. By my count, Father Kevin has taught more than 1,000 undergraduate students foundations of theology. In addition, he has taught a university seminar and several other classes at the master's and PhD levels. In a college where very good on the SIFs is in actuality pretty average, Father Kevin stands out. He almost always gets a 5.0 composite median with high marks for intellectual challenge and time studying outside of class. He's received these high evaluations both in small classes with honor students as well as in giant required classes. To me, however, going beyond teaching evaluations, one of the most remarkable and unique aspects of Father Kevin's teaching portfolio is a one-credit class taught at 7 p.m. on Monday nights last spring. This class was called Augustine and Autobiography. And as I understand it, it came about after a single resident in Dunne Hall approached Father Kevin asking him to provide some guidance on working through Augustine's Confessions. This request snowballed into a formal one-credit course taken by a staggering 452 students. Stop and think about that for a moment. More than 5% of the undergraduate students at Notre Dame piled into a lecture hall on cold, dark nights this past spring semester to listen to Father Kevin lecture about a book that was written 1,600 years ago. As a final assignment, Father Kevin had each student compose his or her own spiritual autobiography. Father Kevin read and responded to each of these autobiographies over the summer, every single one. Testimonials from former students are overwhelming. One student wrote, Father Kevin's impact on his students, including myself, is nothing short of transformative. He not only teaches theology, but also helps us navigate the complexities of life with faith and grace. Wrote another student, he calls his students into conversation and community with one another. He calls them to question complacency and to become comfortable asking difficult questions. One of Father Kevin's former graduate teaching assistants wrote, Father Kevin empowers and inspires his students to vigorously inhabit the intellectual life. One of his former students and residents of Dunne Hall wrote, a phrase that has come up when talking about Father Kevin with others is radically available, which I feel is a profoundly accurate summation of his temperament. No matter how much work he has, how long his day has been, or how exhausted he may be, he never turns away a student. He engages in conversation, invites them to dinner, and makes his room available as a safe space for students that are in need of his guidance. I could go on and on with quotations from former students, but we would be here all afternoon and well into the evening. While this award is about Father Kevin, his accomplishments, and his impact on our students, it is also, as Sarah Mastillo just said, a celebration of teaching and its central place in the life of this college and in this university. Even as we expand, elevate, and enhance our research profile, let us not lose sight of the importance and the profound impact of our teaching and mentoring of young people. I believe that research and teaching are complements, not substitutes. For Notre Dame to fulfill its potential, we must strive to fill our faculty with dedicated teacher scholars who are passionate about, and excellent at both research and teaching. Faculty who pursue truth in their scholarship and aim to share that truth through their teaching. Faculty who demand excellence, but are also kind, patient, and forgiving. Faculty who hold others to a high standard, but also meet young people where they are. Faculty like Father Kevin Grove. We are fortunate to count Father Kevin as a colleague, and our students are blessed to have him as a teacher. Friends, please join me in congratulating Father Kevin Grove, the 2024 recipient of the Reverend Charles Sheedy C.S.C. Award for Excellence in Teaching.
I'm grateful to Professor Sims for his humbling introduction and to all of you for attending. A particular moment for me as a learner has a lot to do with how I teach. I'll open this address with it. At the end of my first term in college, other than for chemistry, the exams for my 3 Great Books courses were simultaneous. In the same oral exam, a literature scholar would examine me on Greek tragedies and epics, a classicist would take his turn for the history of the ancient world, and a philosopher would conclude with the pre-Socratics, Plato and Aristotle. On its face, it could have been any Great Books exam, and my friends and I had carefully prepared the study questions. The first period of that exam went exactly as anticipated, serious questions about Greek tragedy and epic. Next, however, the classics professor, Dr. David Madsen, indicated that he would leave all his exam questions behind and ask me instead something else. He asked me what parallels I could see between the late Roman Republic and farming. That's right, farming. It's been 2 decades, but the feeling of panic is still fresh when I think about that moment. I had not prepared that. I do not even think we talked about farming in the course. Dr. Madsen, however, was the program director and was unrelenting. He knew that I'd grown up on a family farm and ranch in Montana. Scared and maybe even irritated, I stammered out something about Truman-era farm subsidies in U.S. agricultural policy and the Gracchus brothers. It was the only thing I could think of, and it pains me a bit now to appreciate how silly of an answer it was. time inched along. But finally, the floor was turned over to my philosophy professor. And the philosopher said that he'd be loath to move the conversation in a more conventional direction. And so we should continue the theme. How could I relate the farmer to Plato's Republic, to the divided line, and the experience of the cave? You get the idea. I left the exam not knowing what to make of the experience and curious as to why my professors had made me speak about farming, which had not been the subject of any class, my papers, or my comments. I was studying to be a doctor, not a farmer. I realized the gift I was given on the ride home. In the 83 miles from the airport to my family's farm outside of that town that I normally describe as having 200 people, but in reality, Professor Sims is right, 179. On that car ride, my mom casually asked me what I had learned. Neither of my parents have college degrees, and it's a great point of pride that their children do. I was immediately dismissive. Oh, Mom, it's just a bunch of philosophy and literature. And I remember catching myself before I could add the next thing I was thinking. And you wouldn't understand. That was the gift that my faculty members had given me, and I was about to squander it. So I took the risk, and for 80 miles had a lively conversation about tragedies, doxa, episteme, and how it all related to our family and our farm. I'm sure that exam was as painful for my professors as it was for me, but they helped me to turn around and notice, as if for the very first time, that which I thought I knew, or even more dangerously, that which I thought I knew well enough to dismiss. To be of service to such moments of turning around, for me, is the deep and abiding joy of the vocation to teach. I'd be remiss, though, without at this juncture giving thanks. Notre Dame Cathedral reopens in Paris this weekend, and in the grand transept under the southern rose window are stained glass of the four evangelists. I love it because they are portrayed small, not much larger than children, and each of them is literally sitting on the massive shoulders of a prophet. I'm blessed to teach in a department and college in which I was once a student, and I'm very appreciative of the figurative shoulders on which I sit. John Meyer read People magazine about things of zero interest to him in order to make points land for his students. His lecture on the prologue of the Gospel of John in a warm DeBartolo classroom is the only time a lecturer has demonstrated such beautiful oratory that it's caused my eyes to mist. The intellectual structure by which I guide students through their foundations of theology, I owe to Gary Anderson. On doctoral committees or mentoring my own advisees, I can't tell you the number of times that I've asked myself, what would Cyril O'Regan or Sister Kathy Hilkert do? My colleagues in theology and across the college are more than I can mention here, but I treasure that I am able to work alongside such talented scholars for whom teaching is a sacred duty. The other group for me to thank is my brothers in the Corby Hall community of Holy Cross. Fathers John Dunne, Tom Blantz, and Bill Miscampbell are predecessors in this award. Our community meals are occasions when conversations about teaching in some form are always acceptable. I love Holy Cross at table, for at heart we are still students who inspire each other and keep each other humble. From the way wizened confreres describe him, Father Charlie Sheedy was the tender-hearted, quick-witted epitome of our Corby Hall community. While I owe the deepest debt of gratitude to my students, I'll save that for my final line. The award asks that I make some not too long comments about teaching. I will make 3 points, each with an example. I'm often asked by people for a catchphrase. What is unique about a Holy Cross education? Maybe it's good in the end that we aren't reducible to a marketable quip. But there is a thread which runs from our founding through our current rule of life. It's a claim that the lives of our students are sacred, given to us, and if cared for sufficiently, we who teach will glory in our students discovering themselves to be ever more fully alive. Basil Moreau, Holy Cross's founder, wrote to all of Holy Cross in 1856, describing education in the strongest available language for life in the Catholic tradition. "Make haste, therefore," he writes, "take up this work of the resurrection." This is continued in the contemporary constitutions of the order, which claim resurrection is a daily event, that we might see somehow daily pedagogy as touched by Easter's light while still longing for fullness. This is a big idea, I tell my students, for learning and suffering have been paired together for at least 3 millennia. But that the challenges of learning could be imaged paschally is uniquely invigorating. At times, learning might feel like carrying a cross with multiple falls, help needed along the way, times of loneliness, frustration, and even death to self. But the experience of truly learning, that which we will never forget, rises up in us in some small way like resurrected life and draws out of us a wholeness that we didn't think possible. The darkness of the past becomes the felix culpa of a life restored. Last spring, our students showed this to me in a very special way. It requires a brief setup and a couple of extra details that Professor Sims didn't say. I'm blessed to be a priest for a residential community on campus called Dunne Hall. And 2 years ago, in the dark days of winter, a freshman named Noah Allen walked down the hallway and asked, "Father Kevin, can we read Augustine's Confessions with you?" As a systematic theologian who works on memory, Augustine plays a major role in my research, but I've never had the opportunity to read the Confessions with undergraduates. I replied to Noah that never had a Notre Dame undergraduate asked something more beautiful of me. Indeed, we could have a little book club right in the hall for this young man and his few friends. But I looked at Noah and I asked, "When you get busy, are you going to stop coming? And I will end up reading Augustine's Confessions alone, which I have already done." And he looked back and said, "Yes, probably." What emerged from his honesty was a 1-credit pass-fail course on Monday nights at 7 p.m. And to cut that part of the story short, it ended up in DeBartolo 101 with 450 enrolled, and the non-registered sat in the aisles. Other than attendance, as you already heard, the only assignment was, from whatever the student's perspective, to write their own confession-style autobiography at the end. They passed the course upon submission, and I read them over the summer and wrote a card to each one in response. 450 were registered for the course. More than 450 turned one in. Appreciating these spiritual autobiographies was more of a gift to me than I could ever express here. And once I get some time to edit it over the break, I'll publish my response to them. But they proved to me that Moreau was right about education and life, in part because they spoke about how hard learning has been. Namely, the digital lives which they began from a very young age have in their darkest times changed them and diminished their freedom and their life, exacerbating feelings of loneliness and anxiousness. They expressed that the moralistic therapeutic deism that characterizes the religious practice of American young people is profoundly unsatisfying and forms one cognitive shallow root of the disaffiliation of our age. They laid bare the pressure to succeed, to be recruited, and that the drive for possessions, pleasure, and power can transform the goods of this world into a way of, quote, sacrificing our 20s to the grind. In these ways, our students carry their own crosses. I also read, in story after story, that when things go well in Notre Dame classrooms, human dignity is uncoupled from performance, and wisdom emerges. A young woman captured something common to them all when she said she had, quote, an intellectual resurrection at Notre Dame, including and especially concerning her faith. These humble tales, not of triumph, but of weakness touched by grace, are how students describe, at their best, their classrooms and their dorms. I ended the summer more excited about what we share as a faculty here than ever before. Resurrection as a daily event isn't a distant star or platitude. It's a mystery revealed in the gritty commitment to accompaniment. My theological tradition is committed to the idea that the glory of God is the human person fully alive. The miracle of education for me is to be of service to that new and rising life. My second point is that teaching here brings with it what the poets describe as the unexpected sweetness of virtue, which we faculty learn from and with our students. Each semester on the first day of class, I promise my first-year students that I will never give them busy work. Though I will ask a lot of them, everything serves a purpose and will build on itself through the whole of the term. It's accountability for myself, but I'll give you an instance of how students have raised the stakes. One of my courses is a super section of Foundations of Theology. In advance of the first semester of teaching this super section, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to make a large classroom feel small. I ultimately decided to collaborate with Residential Life on a model that might draw strength from our students' residential experience. In the classroom, I break down the room for first-year students into a map of Notre Dame's campus, from Graham Family Hall in the east to Carroll Hall in the west, and have students sit with members of their own residential community. In class, this allows me to make theological concepts sticky by connection to what we might call local traditions. And a room of 256 students, divided by 33 halls, feels like going to class with a group of 7 friends. And it helps me greatly to memorize names spatially. This is accompanied by a program of intellectual mentoring, whereby sophomores and juniors in each residence hall who have had my class before lead peer conversations about the practical consequences of theological ideas for students of all traditions and none at all. It's an opt-in program, and students meet with leaders in their own communities, normally at some very late hour of their choosing, for 30 minutes a week. I'm an Augustinian scholar at heart, so I believe that grace builds on nature. The enticement for nature is extra credit. And over 99% of students elect to participate. What begins as a chance to earn a few points toward the GPA has become the grace of our students witnessing the virtues as well, that everything matters. Because these conversations are spread across 33 residential communities, I simply ask the leaders to take a photo, an attendance selfie, after their conversations to assure me everyone was there. To be honest, this was just meant to save me time in administrative work. But only 2.5 weeks into the first semester of the program, the women of Pastorally East made incarnate a conversation from class about Michelangelo's expulsion from the Garden of Eden on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. I added it to my slides for the next class, and the students have never stopped. Caravaggio's Sacrifice of Isaac of Genesis 22 found expression in lions, with the rector's dog caught in the thicket. Bruegel's Tower of Babel is reproduced most semesters in O'Neill. Tissot's View from the Cross has exposed a surprising number of anonymous toes. And my own hall of Dunne took on the Last Supper with gestural precision. Even without an image, the autors of Soren College caught hold of the rabbinic tradition that the eyes of the fish were like the synagogue windows that opened Jonah to a light of mercy that was not his own. There's much about these examples that's simply playful, but it does not make them less profound. For an image is only intelligible inasmuch as it relates to that which is beyond itself. The theological contention is that we too are images, only intelligible inasmuch as we relate beyond ourselves, even unto God. Each student image follows a conversation about life's purpose. The students themselves are the artistic expression of a human image that simultaneously discloses God and neighbor. And in 6 semesters and over 1,000 students having these weekly conversations about brokenness, self-interest, mercy, and life itself, I have been a privileged witness to the imago Dei in their shared humanity, as those related in love, whose lives are of and for. That fundamental relationality is a way of living, and at our best, with our students, we incarnate its sweetness as virtue. The final reason I teach is hope, and not simply because I wear the cross and anchors around my neck. But theology has found that God's revelation over the centuries is most discoverable under the meekest sign of its opposite. And so in the first week of college, I assign a too-long reading about doubt. Over the first weekend of fall semester, I ask students to write their first paper on an essay written by Notre Dame Laetare medalist and essayist Walker Percy called The Message in the Bottle. Percy's thought experiment takes up the predicament of an amnesiac castaway on a wonderful, scientific, and cultured island. The protagonist knows everything but his purpose, the conditions of where and how he might feel at home in this world. Good science, culture, music, and community provide a wonderful life on the island, but he cannot shake the fact that he is a castaway. Percy's contention is that the human condition is that we are cast into the world. And the condition of our despair is to dupe ourselves into feeling at home when really we are not. Here are just a few lines I treasure from a former student. At that very moment, when he should feel most at home on the island, when needs are satisfied, knowledge arrived at, family raised, business attended to, at that very moment, when by every criterion of island at homeness, he should feel most at home, he feels most homeless. He is a castaway. As soon as I read this from Percy, I felt like he had written it specifically for me. I've always had a good life, by most standards, with a stable family, good friends, and a strong sense of personal accomplishment. But at the same time, I have, for as long as I can remember, longed for something else. Even at Notre Dame, my dream school for my entire life, I had all the pieces of what I thought made me happy, yet I often felt like I was just playing an act. After all, as Percy reminds us, the worst of all despairs is to imagine one is at home when one is really homeless. I consistently found myself at the grotto at 2 a.m. on many nights of the week, asking God if there was something wrong with me. I didn't get it. I was supposed to be satisfied with what I had. The student concludes, I am a castaway. This is the reason for my hope. That in the College of Arts and Letters, we need not simply bemoan the brokenness of our world as those observing it from without. Rather, we have the freedom to begin from the collegial union of spirit that is forged from the humble admission that we are not altogether at home in the world as we have made it, and that we long for more. I have had many students write that they remember and relate to Percy's castaway the most out of their theological formation. And because election or vocation does not culminate in triumphalism, neither should Sheedy addresses. I teach about the predicament of not feeling at home in this world because I join my dear students in it. In fact, I suspect that most of us faculty would claim the same. We careen for the contradictions, the paradoxes, and the unsettled things of this world because working hard on the pursuit of truth opens us up to realities that we do not make but receive, especially the closeness of God and neighbor. I'll close this address in the fashion that I end all of my classes, from the first year to the doctoral. As I explain to my students, when they walk across the stage and receive their degrees, they'll be marked in gold with 3 words: Vita Dulcedo Spes. It's my contention that for all and for each, these words have significance. Even more than history, and certainly more than simple piety, they seem to me to form a posture, a way of learning and teaching that is the special calling of this Catholic Research University. For those 3 words come from a Marian prayer called the Salve Regina, which has the courage to identify the conditions of our world as a place in which we do not feel at home. Percy calls this the predicament of the castaway. The Lady on the Dome claims that we are exiles in a valley, even at times of tears. Mary, Notre Dame, frees a community of scholars and students alike to admit our restless hearts as the opening posture of our inquiry. It's a posture that allows us to turn around each day and see, as if for the very first time, that our social, intellectual, and spiritual attainment will be measured by the graces we reflect: our life, our sweetness, and our hope. My receipt of this award is in gratitude to my students who continue to teach me all 3. Thank you.
Thank you for those really beautiful remarks. I think at this time of the semester, it's just wonderful for all of us to be reminded why we're here and why we do this work, and you just did that beautifully. So I would like to extend my thanks to Father Kevin. It's such a joy to have him in the college and to learn from him. I would like to also give a special thanks to all of the students who made it out today to support Father Kevin and be here for him, as well as the members of the Congregation of Holy Cross who are here today, and I see a lot of them out there. So just what a wonderful celebration of Father Kevin and of teaching in the College of Arts and Letters. So thank you all for being here today to celebrate teaching in the college. And as we head into this final stretch of the semester, I wish you all the best on finishing the semester and the grading and all the rest that we have ahead of ourselves. And I hope that you all have a blessed Christmas and a wonderful New Year. So please join me out for refreshments out in the lobby area. And again, thanks to all of you.